because I would really want to listen to your questions, and let's try to see if we can find solutions, especially solutions with practicable, actionable steps. Okay, going forward. I hope that at the end of this presentation, this webinar, some of you would have inspiration and know, what the next step should be. Okay, so without much ado, let's go to the slides and see and share what I have there on the slides with you. Laptop, don't do anyhow. It appears do not want to share screen with you guys. We were just practicing this for about how many minutes? Okay, all right, I didn't click something. I was wondering that this thing should be reproducible. That's one important thing in science, okay? So can you all see the screen at full screen?
Yes, we can, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So again, the topic is really on pursuing excellence. So we'll talk about opportunities, challenges in modern scientific research. Okay, so just some brief summary about stuff that Shibumi has said about me. Typically, before I start any presentation, I always have like this brief summary of slides about myself. And so you can at least see a little bit of trajectory about me. My area of research primarily focuses on the area of molecular genetics and microbial biotechnology. So I collaborate with a vast number of people in terms of research. So anything that has to do with studying DNA, my favorite molecule is RNA and proteins. So literally any research can use any of these tools, basically trying to solve problems. So, but my own primary research has been in the area of development of biodegradable plastics. And you see that I've had quite a lot of help in getting to the point I am. I'm going to talk about some of these things and why they are important and the advantages that I got from being able to seek or assess this help. Okay, so let's pay attention. You see some of this stuff I got from societies, some I got from conferences, some I got as fellowships. We'll talk about the relevance of those things somewhere down the line in the presentation. Okay, I also usually like to start my presentation with some interesting quotes. So let's look at what Albert Einstein said about the most important thing is to not stop questioning. If you don't take anything away from today, irrespective of whatever it is that your circumstances right now, irrespective of how confused you think you are, irrespective of how big and scary that dream that you have in your head is, do not stop questioning, meaning that do not stop improving, because every time you have a question, there's always a drive to provide an answer to it. So don't stop questioning, don't stop being curious, don't stop finding answers to those questions. And then with respect to science, very important, quote by Louis Pasteur, is the father technically of the free area of food microbiology, did a lot of work in the area of fermentation and development of vaccines. And I particularly like this quote because it says, science knows no country because knowledge really belongs to humanity. And it is the touch which illuminates the world. Now, in just putting a little bit of background here, I know that I'm not going to assume that we're all life scientists, but at some point, we must have done some little bit of elementary biology, and you'd have been introduced to the father of genetics, which is Gregor Mendel. He happened to have been an Austrian monk, okay? So at the time when he actually came up with the laws of inheritance, basically the primary law that explains how genetic information is transmitted from one generation to the other. He was in a monastery trying to become what we call in Nigeria father, okay? He wasn't considered as a scientist. As a matter of fact, he found it very difficult to publish his work. No scientific journal was going to accept it. And at the end of the day, he only presented it as a paper and a conference. He was able to share it somehow, and hence the other three people, research groups that rediscovered his laws that he had proposed even after his death, couldn't be attributed to be the primary founders of or pioneers of genetics. So even though he was dead at that time, he's still regarded as the pioneer of genetics. Okay, we call him the father of genetics. Basically, science belongs to humanity. So it might you might be surprised at the kind of ideas that will just pop into your head randomly. So I believe that you being connected to this webinar today means that you're interested in science, okay? Maybe biased towards the life science, okay? Knowledge is belongs to everybody. Science has no nationality, okay? And so that means also that you cannot limit yourself to this. You can't let your current environment be a limitation to you. Every one of us have a phone these days connected to the internet, and now we're in the era of AI. There is boundless and limitless opportunities for everyone to actually explore. The only thing is, are you ready to do the hard work of finding and discovering yourself and looking for things that are well tailored towards your purpose? Okay. All right. Having said this, let's talk a little bit. I picked some of the words from the topic that we're talking about today. Okay. So just to remind ourselves about what basically science is. Okay. Science is, there's a system. Something about science is that it's a systematic method, okay, of basically seeking knowledge to explain the physical world, and then, in an unbiased way, using experimentation. Okay, so science basically goes from, there's that, approach where you can follow through the steps in the process of doing any form of science, ultimately unbiased observations. So you have to report, your results exactly the way they are, unbiased. It doesn't matter what you had in mind as your explanation pre-experimentation. Okay, so at the end of the day, what we do is ultimately organizing knowledge in form of testable hypotheses and predictions, okay, about the world around us. So in terms of modern science, largely the way we divide, from what I've found from my research preparing for this talk, so science is broadly divided as natural science now, and it's even from that natural science that we coin out the field of life science, basically, which is the field of biology. Okay, we have social science, which is not limited to this. Social science, I believe, also involves some other areas like in management sciences and all those things. Then we have the field of applied science, medicine, engineering, environmental science. Those kind of things are considered environmental science. Yeah, and irrespective of any type of science it is that you are practicing, okay, one thing is common to every scientific endeavor. It is that it is motivated from observation. You see something and you're fascinated about it, and then you suddenly have that desire to want to explain it and figure it out before no one else does, okay? Because you kind of feel at the end of the day that, oh, I have this inspiration idea about this problem, about this observation, and the desire to want to answer that question is what really spurs you on into the scientific process itself. So that means that if we say science is a systematic method, okay, we can look at the steps in which the scientific process follows, which is essentially the scientific method. So it typically starts from making an observation that leads you to asking a question, and from there you do a thorough background research, because it's erroneous to assume that nobody has ever thought about the idea that you had or made a similar observation. So you don't fall into the error of repeating what has been done previously. You have to do a thorough background research about this question. And in having your own thought process, in terms of answering the question, your background research, you formulate an hypothesis. And your hypothesis is a prediction that is testable. Okay. From your hypothesis, you can develop experiments to actually test, okay, and gather data. From your data, experimental data, you can analyze and draw conclusions. You either accept your hypothesis, and if you accept your hypothesis, you can go on and share the results. This is a very important step in the scientific process. You have to work to share your results. There are lots of scientists that I know that they're good with experiments on the bench, but they're just almost very bad in writing. So, which means that writing, being able to share your reports, being, it's even also a reflection of how well you detailed and planned your experiment, such that how well did you collect your data. It helps you to be able to write your reports, very concisely, and then you can share in a conference, share in a seminar, share in a paper, a report, a journal, an article, short communication. Now, however, if your conclusions don't align with your hypothesis, okay, you can, of course, reject the hypothesis, obviously, and then that means the hypothesis doesn't explain, the data doesn't support your explanation of this question, and based on the background research you've done, you think again, you formulate another hypothesis, you keep testing. Okay, now this particular cycle of rejecting hypothesis and thinking again can be a very, very Herculean step. And so I'm going to share a very interesting experience of mine in this process with you guys. Because oftentimes, most of you researchers or young people think that the good thing is you perform an experiment, you get the results, it aligns with your expectation. It doesn't always work like that. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
It
ma'am.
doesn't always work like that. And so that's the expectation I had when I started my own master's education. Okay, started my master's in cell biology and genetics. My project initially was to develop, do a seed banding to determine or detect chromosomal polymorphisms, inversions, translocation, and all those things. They're more cytogenetics related. That is how we started this project. And I went collecting grasshopper for a whole year. I kept collecting grasshoppers, dissecting grasshoppers, removing testes, sacrificing them, removing their testes, staining for a whole year. I kept doing this every day. The technique that I was working on had to take me walking in the lab for an entire day. I would get to the lab as early as possible, go first, collect my grasshoppers, and then get into the lab by 6 a.m. I'm leaving at 11. And I am doing an experiment over and over again for 1 year. Think about it. And I'm not getting results. I have to keep rejecting and keep thinking again, going back to literature. And so, science is always advancing. So I keep checking literature. Is there somebody that has done this? Is there a way out? I kept doing this experiment over and over and over again for a whole year. By the time I was still working on seed banding, some of my colleagues were doing, the regular thing. The research, the predictable outcome, everything was accepting. So they were going through this normal paths. And yet I was recycling between these paths. I kept recycling for a whole year. And when I didn't get the results, there came the time to submit our thesis. And for the first time, I got to know that you could actually submit a thesis or field experiments. If you think writing the thesis for a successful experiment is difficult, think about writing the thesis for a failed experiment, explaining why the experiment failed and why I had to resort to another technique ultimately. It was a very serious task. I wrote the thesis, and of everybody in my set of class, I think about 7 or 8 of us did our defense at the same time. I was the only person that had an A in master's. Master's thesis is 6 credits. And I think part of the fact that I got that A was what also helped to push me further into the distinction grade that I finished this in my master's. So I hope this small thing that I've told you gives you an idea of how this loop keeps going on until you get to this point. Okay. And this is why, even as you go through the loop of rejecting hypothesis, you need to keep updating your knowledge. You see that once it's a forward and backward loop here, you keep going back and checking. Okay. And that is why science is not typically done in isolation. It was very difficult in the early days, okay, where there was no access to information. It was the type of journals and article that you can just type a topic in Google now and get an answer. That's not the way things were previously. People had to communicate, write letters to get articles sent down to them by post and all those things. So science is not done in isolation. You will be surprised at, the kind of conversations you can even have with your so-called non-scientific friends or family members. But as long as they have a very functioning brain, you'll be surprised at the kind of ideas that can just pop up. And then you say like, oh, let's try it. And it might just lead you to the correct line of thought and solve the problem. So don't do science in isolation. Don't be in a closed loop. I wasn't, okay? But it was very frustrating. Imagine doing an experiment over and over again for a year in Nigeria. Let's add that now to it. But I can tell you the story now because it ended in praise. Okay. Ultimately, I was able to explain, which is where I'm going back now. I was able to explain the science of what I was doing. I was able to keep bringing back that experiment to science. I was able to connect it back to science. So in doing science, you've got to know what you're doing. You have to have a very strong knowledge base about the subject matter. You're not doing science of everything. So in doing the science of this particular subject matter, you need to study and know critically everything about this. Okay, so let's move on. So putting it all together, the scientific method basically is summarized into the planning stage, the experimentation stage, and of course the analysis and the communication of results stage. Okay, so let's see research. So what is research? Okay, so research is, again, the systematic and organized inquiry that aims to discover, interpret, and expand knowledge in a specific field. And so it relies heavily on the scientific method, okay? So just like I've said there, you have to formulate questions, hypotheses, and all of that. So to be a good researcher, and that's why I spent a good deal of time. I know you guys have heard about the scientific method before, but I've given you some few experience in which this is going to be tested. You cannot be a lazy person when it comes to research. At some point, you must chew your research. Your research will consume you. If you don't get to the point where your research is literally what you see every time, I don't think you've gotten there yet. But over time, it's just going to become natural for you. Okay, it gets to the point where, for instance, I always share this experience with some of my students. Okay, I was consumed. I was writing my thesis at this point, my PhD thesis, and so I had like 4 or 5 contributions to knowledge written there. And the question was, what is your main contribution to knowledge? And I was pondering on this for about a month. And guess what? How I found what my main contribution to knowledge was? On this quiet, I can't remember, weekday afternoon, nobody was in Erica Postgraduate Hall in Unilag. I would woken up, going to take a shower in the afternoon. And as I was like, pouring the first batch of water on my body, there was that light bulb moment. I literally ran out of the bathroom, grabbed my phone and recorded everything that came to my mind, went back to the bathroom, took a shower, and that was how I solved that problem. I don't know many of us that know the story of Karimulis, the guy that developed PCR. It is said that he was actually on his way home driving, thinking about the process. And that's where this inspiration came and clarity went to the lab. And one of the most revolutionizing tools in life science now is PCR as a technique. Okay, so your research gets to a point where you kind of like get consumed by it. I'm not saying you become isolated because you're doing research. It's what you see, it's what you think, it's what you breathe. Okay, And so research importance to solve problems, foster innovation, contribute to knowledge, and generate novel outcomes at the end of the day, ultimately. Okay, so and this brings me to a very important aspect of this the talk that I'm having with you guys. See, these 5 things that are here: honesty, transparency, accountability, respect, and rigor. These are the hallmarks of research integrity. I have had the choice. In fact, one of the main concerns of AI, my concern with AI, is that in the field of molecular biology, we tend to generate things that we call gels, blots. These things can be doctored these days. I mean, there are ways in which now we are able to tell doctored gels and all those things from undoctored gels, because there are always inconsistency. Nature is not perfect, but AI is definitely going to give you a very perfect image of certain things. And that's how we can, guide against that. So these 5 things you have to have at the back of your mind. Okay. Importance in, I said, collaboration is very important. Okay. You're accountable to your colleagues. Know that when you're doing that research in your laboratory, where only you are with your supervisor, or maybe when you become an independent researcher with your student, know that you're accountable to everyone, the society at large. Respect people, okay? Your colleagues, be transparent, report your methods, okay? So all of this stuff here, very important. Research integrity is something we have to have at the back of our mind, okay? Because without it, an individual is really not going to go far in the area of research. So, which brings me to writing, okay? You guys are at the stage where you're going to do a lot of writing. I know some of you you're thinking of writing your CV. Some of you are looking for collaboration. You're writing emails. I get quite a lot of messages written to me on LinkedIn. Sometimes, I'm telling you the truth, guys, you send me an email, I'm reading the first 2 paragraphs of your email. If you send me a story, trust me, nobody's reading the first 2-3 lines, in that email. We are just literally going to scroll if we don't find any substance there. So make sure that you write concisely. At least the first 2 parts of your email, the first 2 sentences, paragraphs, short paragraphs of your email should be catchy enough, to get you to arouse the interest of the person reading, such that before you know what they are doing, they have read the entire email. Okay. So you have to also put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're sending the email to. Know that a lot of the times people are busy. Sometimes you just say, oh, somebody sent me an email. And then I read the first 2 paragraphs, and then, okay, I remember, I put it down on my notes immediately. I can bookmark it. I can pin it and say, okay, I'm going to come back to this email. But a lot of the times, I might not have time to read through anymore. I'm just going to remember what I wrote down. That stuck with me on this email that this person wrote, and give them feedbacks. You're going to write 10 papers, research proposals, scientific reports. So at the hallmark of being a good researcher is that you're going to do a lot of writing. Okay. And writing is very important. Okay. Because in research, the type of writing we do is academic writing. Okay. And so it has important components to it, which are just, I've also highlighted over there. Okay. It has to be concise. This is typically like you're writing your reports. Okay. It has to have sections, you need citations, form. Also, as soon as you're doing that, your background research, you've created a folder, and then you're downloading your paper, you're already building your citations. Okay, it's not when you need them. I say, there was one paper. Imagine when I was doing that, my master's research, when I started a year ago. What was that paper that I saw? You start building it up, okay? I happen to be a very paper-based person. I know that these days you guys do a lot of things on the laptop, tablets, phones, highlighting, and all of that. Okay, so keep a very good record, a folder, even if it's going to be in the cloud, of what you're doing. Okay, so that you can easily get back to, especially the citations aspect. Okay, and this brings me to another important aspect in academic writing, which is plagiarism. Okay, I like to talk about this when I talk research, something research with people. Okay, so it is academic, it is theft to plagiarize. So every time you taking somebody's words, moving it around, doing this tiny of these types of plagiarism, remember that what you're doing is theft. Okay, the root word of plagiarism comes from the word that means kidnapping. You're literally taking, you know, the way they say they are doing kidnapping in Nigeria. You are kidnapping, you're taking wrongfully what does not belong to you. And plagiarism can come in this form, including self-plagiarism, like you're recycling your words. Okay. If you sleep today and you try to write a sentence, a thought process, and express it in a sentence, in the next 1 week, that same thought process, you're not going to express it in the same way. So there's nothing like, oh, I submitted this work and I just don't know how to rewrite it. You can rewrite it. Self-plagiarism it's not acceptable. You are stealing and kidnapping from yourself. Patchwork plagiarism is something that you guys, this generation, move things around, rearrange it, and then there is paraphrasing. I mean, by the time you start getting to the level of verbatim plagiarism, that's like very serious. Not to talk of a stage of global plagiarism. The journal that that I'm the associate editor, there was a case of global plagiarism that we had, where a researcher from an institution had taken the entire publication, full publication of an author in our journal, and they literally just removed the author's names and all of that and changed the name submitted it to the journal. The exact thing. So how did we get to know? This author, after several years, was trying to go back to that study and was checking on the internet to see, updates, background knowledge, and found his work verbatim, globally plagiarized in another journal that published it. It became a big deal. They had to contact the university of this individual that plagiarized. The journal article had to be put down. Okay, very serious things. You'll be surprised at how this works. And now this brings us to artificial intelligence. Now people can literally tell ChatGPT things, and ChatGPT or other AI to sophisticated ones can just come out. Okay, let's be careful. There's something that is, remember, the scientific process that you started out began with you. Okay, there was something authentic and humane connection to solving a problem about it. You want to ensure that even when you use AI as a tool in writing, in research, in whatever you use it to, you never lose authenticity. So you make sure you set your boundaries, and you use AI appropriately. Once it's deployed correctly, it's going to enhance rather than cause a lot of problems for you. So basically, you can use AI to get basic knowledge. So for instance, the other day I was trying to modify my puff-puff recipe, and I thought, okay, this was not even me using any sophisticated ChatGPT tool. I was trying to check the recipe that my teacher had sent to me first. I couldn't find the paper. So I typed into my WhatsApp, I said, puff-puff recipe. I didn't know I typed it to Meta AI. Guys, it literally gave me the dimensions, everything of how I'm going to make puff-puff. Of course, it had some ingredients that I don't typically use. So I was like, wow. Said, okay, let me try this new AI recipe and modify with my own. So you see what? It became an enhancement, okay? So these are 6 important domains where you can think of deploying AI in academic function, okay? Basically, you will notice everything is in enhancement. Text structuring doesn't mean that the idea of the text is coming from the AI tool, okay? So your originality must not be lost as we get, keep going in AI. This is where research integrity becomes a very important aspect of things, okay? So let's go a little bit from all that I've said now. Obviously, there are challenges. And the very first thing that I know is challenging is research conceptualization. Quite a number of you have varied interests, possibly. Okay, so you want your research to do this, do this, do this, do that, do that. Okay, but how do you clearly define the scope of your research? Okay, first of all, how do you even tell which of these interests should I pursue? Okay, that a lot of things that goes into determining that, and which is the part of the things that I'm going to talk about now. So initially, when I wanted to do, I always wanted to, I loved microscopes. I found that I loved microscopes. And I also loved anything pathways, like steps, this, that. But when people see all those scary enzyme names in pathways, not me. When I look at the Calvin cycle, when I look at the Krebs cycle, when I look at the glycolytic pathway, I'm not scared. I can see what is going on in that pathway. Okay. So those kind of things I find fascinating. That was the first thing. So I want you to take whatever notes you can take from what I'm sharing about how I get into the area of research conceptualization, my interest. Some of it becomes just maybe tools that you really like to use. It might start from there. It might just start from maybe something that you like to, that you have affinity for. Okay. Okay. Then I got super interested. When I look at the microscope, I'm always very excited. So I knew that, you see all those things, dissection, cutting, this organismal biology was not something that was going to be in my area of interest. Okay. So having known that, started doing genetics was absolutely the love of my life in high school. So I knew the type of biology that I really liked. Though I wanted to be a gynecologist, that's a story for another day. But ultimately found myself in life sciences. So I pursued this interest that I had. That led me into cytogenetics. But by the time I had that 1 year experience I told you, which ran is 1.5 years with cytogenetics, I was very tired. And at that time, my love for molecules had grown. So I became very interested in molecular biology. So I diversified from cytogenetics into molecular genetics. But to be able to do that, I had to learn new skills in the area of molecular biology. And so I started immersing myself in trainings relevant, studying things related to molecular biology, plus genetics, and ultimately that's the area I specialized in my PhD, and I've continued downwards. I still do cytogenetics research, but more my focus is in the area of molecular genetics. So how do I determine what type of research I want to do? At some point, I was interested in cancer research. In fact, my original PhD proposal was written for cancer research. But because of the fact that realistically, there were constraints, which is the second point I'm coming into, I had to, set that aside and then conceptualize another research, which I did in collaboration with my PhD supervisor at that time. So how do you conceptualize research? It's very difficult if you are not interested. So I want to say, don't ever get involved in any research that you've not found an interest or passion or something in it. Now, the moment you have those interests in it, broadly start looking for information, explanation about that particular field. And then you go on into, looking at the framework, and this is bringing us back to background research. So it's very difficult to conceptualize research if you don't do your background, if you don't read. Okay, for instance, let me give you a good example of that. This is not even research. I did the course immunogenetics in my master's, during my master's. Now, I did not do immunology. Immunology is taught in microbiology during undergrad. I had to literally go get an immunology textbook and study with my immunogenetics to understand what was going on. So that is just for me to do a coursework. Now imagine if your kind of research interest takes you into a field that maybe you didn't even have prior knowledge in. You cannot be lazy. You have to do the hard work, because it's all of that knowledge base that helps you to refine and then come, to design a good research, helps you to identify, is this going to be a qualitative or quantitative research? So the bulk of the work is really in conceptualization, okay? And here, you want to get things, you want to write things down, you want to be organized about it, okay? And also, the realisticness also has to make sense, okay? So you don't want to try to start up a very Achillean research that you don't have resources for. Okay, so that's the next thing. There are three things here that I listed as access to resources, which is a huge challenge. Number one, I decided to put there is facilities. So sometimes we can come up with research and there's no facility to do it. Just like the case of my cancer research. In fact, it went beyond facility. My cancer research proposal had no facility, no funding, no collaboration. So sorry, talk like great research conceptualization, no access to resource. Okay. The second proposal, which eventually I did for my PhD, had some high level of, collaboration in terms of from my supervisor's point of view. And some few facilities here and there around Nigeria where I could get the job done partly. Okay. Now, you guys know post-COVID, qPCR has become like a very big, it's something you can find in almost any laboratory now. When I did my PhD research in 2013, I can tell you that part of the reason why I had to go to Germany was because of a real-time thermocycler. Okay? There was no real-time thermocycler in Nigeria at the time I was doing my PhD in 2013. So which brings me to collaboration. I had to collaborate, attend a conference where I shared small part of my pilot study based on what we could do in Nigeria and got my collaboration. Okay, so facilities and collaboration sort of like go hand in hand. So you cannot think of, you are never going to have everything in your laboratory. You always have to think collaboration. And this is where, again, I'm going back to background research. As you do your background research, you start to find people that are experts in this field that may have resources that you don't have. And that's where you start to build your potential collaboration base, ultimately at the end of the day. So we address the big elephant in the room, which is funding. And funding plays a very big role in everything because it is funding that you use to even access facilities in terms of equipment and reagents and chemicals and all of that. And it's also funding that you use to actually train yourself, okay? Get yourself to a position in terms of skill and expertise. Where do you get this money? Is the ultimate question. Most of you all might be not working, but you have to fund yourself. Maybe you're getting into NYSC, or you're getting out of NYSC, or you've just graduated, you finished NYSC, you don't have a job, and here's this lady talking about research, with what money? Training, with what money? My darlings, you have to find the money. I don't know how you're going to find it, but I'm going to tell you how I found my own money. And maybe you could borrow one or two things from there. How did I find my money? Okay, up until I did my pathway such that immediately after my bachelor's, went for NYSC. And during NYSC, I was posted to Olabisi Onabanjo University. From Olabisi Onabanjo University, came straight for my master's. After my master's, started my PhD. So I never had a full-time job until I was towards the tail end of my PhD when I started to work in Favour, which was in 2014. So I really ran mostly on the sponsorship of my parents, okay? And they were primarily the people that funded my education, funded my research, especially masters, okay? Funded my stay in the lab of my collaborators in Germany and Poland. But they didn't provide all the funding. So there was one of these days I was lying down on my bed in my room in a car frustrated. At that time, I was thinking that I think I'm going to go and accept this job in KPM. Was it KPMG or was it one bank? I was thinking that what am I even doing? Stressing myself in this research. I want to do research to solve problem. There's no support. And then I remembered, I said, I have a CV. I have a skill set that can fetch me money. It is called teaching. I love teaching biology. Christ. When I'm teaching a topic in biology, I feel excitement from the depth of my soul. So I said, okay, I'm going to go around Unilag and find places where I can teach biology and earn money. I went around, found one or two places. They gave me a teaching test. I taught and then I started teaching. At this time, I was earning 250 naira per hour. I would teach these students for 3 hours, biology, that's 750 naira. This was, which year was this now? 2011, 12, thereabouts. No, 2010 was when I started with this center that is in Chemist bus stop around Unilag side. So I started teaching there. It was one of the days that I was teaching this, my 750 naira for 3 hours lecture, that one of the maths teacher had found that that's the voice of a lady teaching. Why is a lady teaching? Because it's thought that this is kind of like a hustling thing and is more masculine. And this guy said, wow. Approached me and said, I teach biology like this. Like he has a particular parent that wants a female teacher to teach their daughter biology. Yeah, okay. And then they hooked me up. I went to teach the biology. And that's how I became a very hot cake teacher for biology. And then I had to teach in international centers, prepare people for examination. I teach private. Of course, I didn't stop teaching in my 750 naira per hour, 250 per hour. When they moved to 500, I moved with them. So I was teaching all over Lagos. So at the moment they stopped Okada from moving, I almost collapsed because I could finish a class literally in Surulere and have the next class in Yaba and flying bike. I hustled to get money. At that time, I knew the focus was funding for my research, for my studies, okay? That was not the time for me to be buying ashwebis. That was not the time for me to focus on frivolities. This is money that is very scarce. And yet I had the support of my parents paying my fees. So what am I trying to tell you? Look for something. Find a passion. Find something aside from this that is going to fund your passion in research ultimately. I mean, you're not going to be able to buy everything, but you can at least pay for your training in something, a 50,000 naira training, a 100,000 naira training, a 150,000 naira training. Right now, those are the monies that we are hearing. As at 2009, I was attending trainings where we were paying 80,000. That type of training cannot be held in Nigeria under these circumstances anymore because they're probably going to charge close to millions for it because of the situation of the naira. So you have to be creative, okay? Do things that possibly won't take you off, research. There's also one thing I'm going to share with you last on this funding matter. I have a friend who is now actively in research, serving as a technical advisor to the Commissioner for Environment in Lagos State. What he did was that after his master's, he decided to get a job in banking. And when he told me this, I was like, hey, are you sure if you go to banking, you will come back with the money that they see in banking? He said he's going to work for 2 years in banking, in marketing, and he's going to get money to make sure that he's comfortable, he can sustain himself while he's doing his research. And to a large extent, if he would need to maybe travel, he might be able to fund his stay, his flight, and all those things. So he went with this specific goal for about 2-3 years and came back to do his PhD. And he has since then stayed in science. So what I'm saying is it takes a high level of discipline. I don't think if I did what he did in my own case, I'm probably not going to come back to science. So I stayed within the scope of things that interest me specifically in science, something still closely related to what I'm interested in. Because if I had stepped out of that interest, we won't be having this conversation today, I can tell you that. So I gave you those 2 examples so that you don't think that there's just one way to it. And it might not even be that your way. It might just be here and there. But you've got to think about outside of the box to be able to get funding. Another thing is passion, value. What are you going to do to get money? Because legally. Okay. And so we can come to the other, general things, but are very important. So in doing all of this, you have to set goals. You can't just do things anyhow. Your goals have to be specific. They have to be clear. They have to be measurable so that you can track them. Okay. They're actionable things you can actually do. Can I take this step? For instance, you want to come up with a research where you want to do something in the whole of Nigeria. Do you have the money? Do you have the connections? Do you have the collaboration? Is it actionable? Okay, even if it's actionable, you have to break it down into small, small steps that you can track. Is it realistic? Is it going to overwhelm you? Is it going to cause frustration because it's an unrealistic goal? And of course, it's time bound. So that means you can track. In tracking, okay, from January to February, this is what I'm going to do. Oftentimes, it's good to use a spreadsheet, okay, to be able to connect all of this, in goal setting. Now, coming on to research, okay, the kind of goals that are useful for you will be things like a new skill acquisition goal, your academic goals. For instance, I made up my mind I was going into masters to make a 5.0. I didn't get a 5.0, but I still made my distinction. Your career goals, where do you want to see yourself? Okay, I'm thinking this, that, because all of that again fuels, your passion, your interest, because when you are seeing, it gives you hope that you're working towards something ultimately. And then you also have networking goals. Like I said, you can't do this in isolation. You have to network. You have to meet people. You have to seek help in a timely manner to avoid being frustrated. And of course, this brings us to mentorship and support. Okay. Your mentor, I get a lot of messages from people talking about mentorship. And sometimes I perceive that people are looking for someone to do the work for them. Your mentor creates a path to success for you because they've walked a similar path. So it's not compulsory that mentor has to lay it out for you. There's a hard work path where you have to follow through. They can give you advice, okay? And so that's how they guide you. It might not necessarily be in the exact way that you're going because every individual's path is different. So you have to do the work of lifting your legs and then also communicating properly with your mentor so they can guide you properly. So in terms of mentorship, of course, you will get support, training, go. Now, so you can have mentors that are closely tied to your area of interest. And you can have mentors that are maybe general. So I have mentors that are very closely tied to my area of research. Okay. I have mentors that are also, generally in terms of broadly. Okay. So you can even have mentorship goals as well. What is the value I'm getting from this mentorship interaction with my mentor, in that relationship? And I've emphasized the part of support. I told you about what my family did for me. Okay. My family, my parents, literally, my father sold his land to actually support my trip to Germany and Poland, where I lived for 6 months, because all I had during my PhD was collaboration to do my research free, okay, in both labs. But I had to pay for visas, I had to pay my accommodation, I had to pay for my feeding, transportation, all the logistics, my flights, and everything came from both my parents. My mom had to take loan, ajo. Even when I had to do trainings, my mom would take ajo. When I had to go for international conferences, my mom would take ajo. My dad would, at some point when my father retired, okay, she took a loan from Union Bank, okay. My family, and sometimes it's just that the people that really understand you. And you've got to have good friends. It might be within the scope of what you're doing, or maybe outside of the scope of what you're doing, but friends that will support you, okay, that would always cheer you on, okay, and would also be interested in what you're doing. Perhaps they might have an idea that might work for you. You don't know. And lastly, I'm going to talk about your well-being. In all of this, you want to take care of yourself. You want to eat properly. You want to watch out for your mental health. You want to watch out for your emotions. Because in my language, they say, it can happen when you're doing an experiment over and over again, and you want to pay attention to these 3 core aspects of your well-being because it's closely tied to your productivity. So I usually use this particular picture. So you see this person on the top here, having everything all over the place with stress. Even if they have it together, there's going to be low productivity. And you see the other researcher down here, writing. It takes a person that is all round well to be able to be productive. Okay? And it's on this point that I'm also going to emphasize the fact that Be careful in your experiments. Always read labels. When you're working with hazardous experiments, chemicals, be careful. Okay, your disposal methods and all of that. We've had people that have done research, contracted deadly diseases, and died from it. Be extremely careful as you do your research. Okay, so opportunities. At the time when I did my stuff, PhD especially, there was no grants, was not like this. Okay, I mean, it wasn't the way where you could literally type something into Google and get information. So there are grants that you can apply for now. Okay, are you going to be able to apply for those grants right now at your stage? Most likely not. But say you have a supervisor and you found a grant, your supervisor can be the PI on the project. You write the grants with your supervisor as a student, and you may be able to get grants. Fellowships also work fine, where sometimes, say you started the work in Nigeria, and then maybe you get a fellowship, you can continue elsewhere, or maybe it's even altogether a research fellowship where you can apply to be able to do your research. Trainings, like I said, you have to be able to establish some level of expertise, okay, in what you're doing. So you have to train, okay. You have to do a lot of training. I started my training locally. At some point, I'd done molecular biology trainings in NIMA, in Professor Smith's lab. She was the only person that consistently did hands-on training in molecular biology. That was all the training I had. That was all the skill set I had. And I completed my research project in 6 months, independently, in the labs I visited in Germany and Poland, from attending 4 consecutive sessions of our training at that time. Okay. And right now, a lot of international societies and even some local societies are into, providing funding, some grants. Okay. Which brings me back to that first slide that I showed you earlier. You saw I had some grants that I got from a particular society. I pay the funding. It's quite expensive, but I pay the yearly fee, and I'm able to access those grants in different societies. Okay. So sometimes you might need to feed something to be able to reap. So that some local societies are catching up with it so that they can encourage students to come and present papers and all those type of things. Yeah. So that means that largely now there's a lot of important role that networking by joining scientific societies will provide you. And of course, social media. A lot of people put information now on LinkedIn. Every day you're going to see something pop up. Keep trying, keep applying. At the end of the day, it's going to be stories, because when you get one, you've succeeded. You can say, oh, I applied 20,000 times, but you got one. And that's ultimately getting you one step closer to your goal. So like I said, professional societies are important. If you are in this webinar, I believe you're trying to think about a scientific career, you want to join a professional society. Some of them are free, some of them are not free, okay? Some of them you might require you pay a small amount of due. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Genetic Society of America, okay? Now, when I found information about the GSA, I never knew that I could get a complimentary membership, okay? So apparently, they don't advertise it on their website, but I wrote to them and I said, I'm a researcher in a third world country. I barely even have access to money. So every year, I get complimentary membership from GSA. So some of them might not have any package for that, but writing up to them and say, I'm a student, this, and that, you're wondering if you could get some access, complimentary membership to them, it opens up a world of opportunities for you, okay? And these are very good things that you can get in terms of resources from joining a professional society, okay? And most importantly, I put it on one single side, Google it. Check, search. You have to do it now. Trust me, resources are more available at your disposal. It was much more difficult for even people way ahead of me, okay? I mean, preceding me. So these are some of the references from which I just gathered some thoughts and, for this presentation. And just like the organizers asked me to do, I put together some pictures, okay? I rather put pictures and then you can actually see, and this is Tokwe, very young Tokwe. I think I was about 3 or 4 years old here. This is me as at this year when my PhD, the 10th year anniversary of my PhD, getting my PhD. I've gone to school, BSc, MSc, PhD. I did some certifications. This is me here doing my NIM, doing NYSC. I got a certification in, so right now I have a certificate of proficiency in management. This is me here graduating from getting a certification, a diploma, was it a certificate in computer training? This I did during one of the long ASU breaks that we had when I was in year 2. But this I did during my NYSC. Okay, you have to be a lifelong learner. Okay, these are my parents here doing my master's graduations, my siblings, my nephew. They were accompanying me they were in the airport with me, seeing me off to Pakistan doing my first postdoc. You see them again, my parents, my sisters, and some friends came to my seminar. This is a very wonderful auntie of mine that has always been there to support me through, like there's a lot of people, my friends. But I mean, I can't put all the pictures here. These are my supervisors. Professor Midiji was my academic advisor in school. Ultimately, my PhD supervisor, late Professor Williams, was my master's and BSc thesis supervisor. Professor Khalid Adekoya was my PhD supervisor, also taught me in ANIFA. This is Professor Smith that I told you, she's my mentor in the area of molecular biology. And, when I started out, I attended her trainings. This is Professor Elemo, gave me my first job and the only job that I've had so far in FIRO, okay, post-graduating from PhD. These are also academic mentors now. This was my supervisor in Pakistan, so my supervisor in Poland. Now, this is Dr. Irele Mudupe Irele. She's Nigeria's current ambassador to France. And I taught in a tutorial center for years. In fact, she was the one that I told you that when I was teaching JAM class, where the guy told me to, it was first a tutorial center that he introduced me to. And I taught there for about, I think, 4 years, before graduating and taking up my job in FIRO. Okay, these are some of the pictures from my research trip. If you find yourself in any research lab, network, have friends. Right now, there's literally nothing I want to apply for. I'm going to say this here. One of my mentees who were looking for a lab for her to do her master's work, this guy just accepted her as a host in his laboratory. If I did not do what I was supposed to do properly when I visited his lab, I don't think he'll be eager to say he wants to accept somebody from me, my recommendation. Trainings, some of these are trainings. Some of them were free. Some of them paid token. Some of them I got part funding for. Some of them no funding, paid out of pocket. I'm still paying out of pocket for trainings. So that's why you have to be frugal, okay? As you make this money, manage it judiciously, okay? I also have conferences. Again, sharing your ideas, exchanging ideas is a very good thing. If you are in the scientific research at this time, collaborate with people. Doesn't have to always be, volunteer in committees. You do things. You can't know who you would meet that would know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that gets you somewhere. Okay, very important. Okay, extracurriculars. I talked about well-being. Explore your passion, hobbies, interests, things that help you to distress, because science can be stressful. Okay. Also, I do trainings in terms of the fact that I give back to the society. I've been convening workshops, I speak, and then I also facilitate workshops and all those type of things. And of course, I have a team that I work with back in FIRO. Okay, so we started small, and then we're growing by the day. I think we're even about 7 or now. We have added 1 more person to the team. Okay, so teamwork. Okay, wherever you find yourself, always want to have the opportunity to share ideas and network with people. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to say thank you for listening, and this is where I'm going to stop. Okay, all right. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fadipe, for that insightful session. I don't know about anybody else, but I learned a lot. Very soon we'll be opening the floor for questions like to the audience. But I personally I wrote down some questions that I would like to ask. So you've been on the Nigerian end and the global end of science or research. So I wanted to ask if there were any huge contrasts that you've noticed in research culture and in access, both locally and internationally.
Wait, let us write this thing down. I have to get a textbook. So you said access, right?
Yes, I was the biggest contrast between
Access.
local and international spheres in research culture and access.
Okay. The what contrasts? Did you say biggest
The biggest
contrast?
contrast.
Biggest contrast. Okay. Do you want me to answer that now?
Yes, we can answer as we go.
Okay. All right.
To the next question.
Biggest contrast in terms of access. Of course, the first thing I happen to specialize in a field that is very expensive. Oh. Molecular biology reagents are expensive. So access to resources, facilities, chemicals, reagents, big, it's night and day. You don't need to elaborate too much on that. It's completely different, okay? But one of the things I do is every time I've had opportunity to travel, if I even go for an international conference, I'm going for a conference, I'm checking. Are some of these companies coming to exhibit that I know I need the resources from? So literally what I do is I go there to that exhibition time for conference. I don't joke with it. I go around. I explain my problems to their representatives. I need help. That's why I came to this conference. Sometimes you'll be surprised. I get materials shipped down from abroad to me. That's also why one of the trainings we attended, I was able to network and convince companies to send resources down as technical support for the trainings that I do. So access is definitely different comparing Nigeria versus all the other parts of the world I've been. Culture is also a very big part of it. I can tell you that anywhere I go in the world, I go with my food. Because for some weird reason, I don't just understand what kind of food they eat on the other parts of the world. I don't get it. So I don't want to compromise my physical well-being. I carry my food, carry my atagungun, my egusi, my ejagbigbe, everything. I'm speaking Yoruba. I carry it. In fact, largely my baggage allowance is to carry food. I know that when I get there, I will find clothes. The clothes in Nigeria will probably not be compatible with that environment. So I will have money. I know I would have even asked questions from my host that, which type of clothes, what type of budget should I come with for clothes? But you see those 2 bags, I'm on a food, gari, semo, granules. I don't suffer. When I would have dried ugu correct, I will soak it and make. When I went to Spain, I got there in the night. I was tired. Immediately I got there, I have ukuruku straight up. As I was going to settle into the room where they had gotten me a temporary apartment, I brought my ukuruku out, washed it, started boiling. You know, ukuruku takes time to soften, right? I was boiling my ukuruku, went to the bathroom, finished, made egusi sharply. I traveled with palm oil. Sharply, eba, bam. As I got to Spain, I did my yellow gari with egusi. So the food part of thing, you have to know yourself. The food part of thing, I don't understand what those people eat. I don't get it. But culturally, I immerse myself. It's also a very huge cultural shift, especially with language. Okay. So sometimes it might require learning language and all this. Let me tell you one last thing about this culture. So when I was in Germany, my host got me an apartment with someone that was German that had served for 7 years in the English, was relocated to something like, what's that word in military now? That was posted to England for 7 years. So he understood English very well. So this man, when I had to buy groceries, he told me the type where I could go, and sometimes he would take me down. But when I got to Poland, I lived in an international dormitory. So my rice that I bought from Germany finished. I now went to Google Translate. It's not like now. I now wrote rice. The type of rice I saw in Germany, I wrote it in Google Translate. I wrote it down in Polish on the paper. So I got to the store. You ask them, say, hi, can you speak English? You literally talk to them and they say, they answer, they say, can you speak English? No. And I show them. I kept showing them. I kept showing until somebody came and said, they don't sell golden long rice in this place. I said, really? That's what I wrote. He said, yes. But said, what type of rice do you want? Luckily, there's internet. I have a phone with internet. I typed, got the picture of what I needed, and then it took appropriate section. I spent about 30 minutes there because I did not know how to speak skish. Yeah. And I didn't have money to learn Polish. Me, that's my parents are scraping money for me to travel. It's where I want to go and learn Polish in Nigeria. So subsequently, in the era of internet now, I want to buy something. I just show you the picture. When I got to Spain, I showed them the picture. I erroneously assumed that older people would understand English. In Spain, it was the younger people. So I would normally go to the older people and they'd be looking like me. Like later I say, it's the younger people that speak English in Spain. I switch. Then I see them, hello. So there's a huge cultural shift as well, depending on wherever you go. You have to be careful also in terms of your security. These are conversations you always have. You don't just hop and leave and go somewhere, okay? And so when I was in Pakistan, for instance, safety was something that was very important. I had something, this was just me. I loved dressing, the cultural dress. I liked it. I bought it. I was wearing it. It also gives a kind of vibe that's okay. You actually, other than the science, you are integrating into their culture. So I have a Pakistani sister right now, that I've adopted. Okay. I have a sister in Pakistan.
Wow. Well,
So
that sounds very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
My next question is, in your opinion, what do you think is the most underutilized opportunity for African researchers or for Nigerian researchers in the global research ecosystem?
You're asking me big question with big English. Underutilized resource.
Yes, ma'am.
Underutilized resource by Nigerian researchers, right? In the global space.
Yes.
So I'm going to modify your question. I'm not even going to go global yet. Let us start in the local place. Nigeria still has a culture of doing isolationist research. I do research right now. A lot. People come and say they want to collaborate with me. And when it's time for me to be duly credited, that's when they now have problem to put you. Some people can put you in, you write paper with them. Next thing, you will see your name, number 14. You actually conceptualize the research with them. In fact, there are some that they will publish, they won't put your name there. And yet they came, there's a very, I'm not in one university, let's put it that way. He literally made the students, private university, waste 1.5 years of research because of his isolationist mentality in a private university. They get wasted money and time, most importantly. So even though everybody say, collaborating, I clearly define the terms of my collaboration. You were in my lab. If anybody comes to me and says, students, I want to do research. Oh, tell your supervisor to call me or email me. And we clearly define the scope of my contribution and to what extent I'm going to be credited. So that underutilized resource is collaboration. A lot of people think they can do things themselves only. And because that culture of properly accrediting people, that trust is not there to be able to collaborate and share resources. There are people that come to me and say, this particular project, your designing it, everything. Students are coming into your lab. You are going to be the first author after the students. And after the student, your name followed by my name. And that's the way we've arranged it. So wow, they know. But some people want to come and do corner. So collaboration. Now, when people come to my lab, because I have resources, I share with them. And so students don't really pay so much to buy, because there's really not much funding. So that on the local resource current right now is networking and collaboration, because people are not yet ready to have this conversation about collaboration and what should be done ethically. So, I talked about research integrity. Ethics is important in research. It can't be on there. So now when we talk about global now resource in terms of access, I would say would largely also be maybe collaboration and funding, because people are not ready to do the work of looking. It takes time and strategy to look and find. You must look to find. And you have to search strategically with a goal in mind. So there's a lot of funding out there. See, when I stumbled on Society for Applied Microbiology, which is now Applied Microbiology International, I just was having a random conversation with a guy that we had done facilitation together, because I never thought I was going to join that society. I'm a geneticist. So all my societies have been genetics related, but I'm not doing biotech. And I'm like, okay, biotech is applied microbiology. Okay. So I checked and they do it. They said they have to pay money. Hi, how will I do it now? But then this guy told me, said, see, this society funds, in fact, they're interested in those of us in the third world. So I said, okay, let me try it. I joined. By the second year that I joined, I got my first grant of £2,200 to support my trip to the US. It wasn't everything. Yes, I still needed to add some extra money because I paid £50. I've gotten money from them. I keep getting money. Some of the people that are my mentees in the area of biotech, the first thing I tell them is go and join immediately, because we actually have legitimate good proposals, but we don't have access to funds. Or sometimes you want to attend a training. It might even be a local training. You can access registration fees grant from them. The money that is not enough for somebody to attend a training in UK, you'll be surprised. The 100,000 you are going to ask for them, or 150K you want to ask for them, it's small money. You want to go to South Africa or Tunisia or Kenya or Uganda or Ghana. Those places are international. Hey, I hope you know. And they're a little bit ahead of us in terms of access to resource. So it's not only America, everywhere. Search. And I've said societies, read journals. You will be surprised. You have to be deliberate about these things. So that will be the response to those questions, to that one.
Okay.
Because I modified
Thank
it
you
into
very
two.
much. Yes, I do. I understand. Thank you very much for your answers to that question. I think we have a question in chat. And right now, I'll open the floor for more people to ask questions if they have any. So they can just raise their hand. But I think we'll first read the question that is in the chat.
And I need to go to the restroom quickly.
Okay. Should we have a break? Or okay. If you have any questions, you can just drop them in chat or raise your hand, and I will be unmuting your mic soon. Let me check if there are any more people that have questions. Okay. So there are no hands raised. So I'm assuming that we only have one question in chat.
I am back.
Okay. Welcome back, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have one question to talk about before we start to round up. So
Okay.
Oguroti Real One says you said something about cancer research and how hard it was to get started in that space. I wanted to ask about your opinion of how it is now and if there is any lab currently in Nigeria that can prepare you to stand out in this area as an aspiring cancer researcher.
All right. So there's multiple parts to this question that you have asked me. And in answering this question, you're going to leave with questions that you may need to answer. And in some parts of these questions, I will provide some answers. The first question is, what area of cancer are you interested in? What do you want to contribute to specifically in cancer research? Because there are doctors who take care of cancer patients and they are trying to find solutions as oncologists, as cancer doctors. There are chemists who work on cancer research who are trying to answer this question, looking at interaction between molecules. Biochemists, molecular biologists. There are people like me, molecular genetics, that want to look at what happens at the molecular level to explain phenotypes, expressions in cancer. There are people that are looking at cancer from the angle of biotechnology to develop medications for cancer. There are some areas where they overlap. But what is your goal? Okay, that is one thing that has to be clearly defined. Now, in that question, you would have found overlaps, and that will give you an idea on which type of individuals you might need to collaborate with. And that takes us to answering the question of any labs that are doing that kind of thing in Nigeria. There's a lot of cancer research that is going on in Nigeria now. Again, the major constraint is funding, money. Cancer research requires use of cell lines. And I remember one of my lecturers in University of Lagos that was a collaborator right now, Dr. Adebeshin, that they would order cell lines, it will come into the country, customs and all of that. It's not stored at appropriate temperature, gets contaminated, and then it becomes bad. Okay, so you might think of, hey, what am I going to do now? Do I want to maybe put a little bit of power is a huge constraint. You literally need to have 24/7 power. Do we have 24/7 power in Nigeria? No. Some labs that do cancer research, they have their own kind of power, alternate power kind of like arrangements, like inverters and all those things to keep. Otherwise, the reagents that are expensive will go bad. So once you answer exactly what is your own problem, what is the problem you want to solve in terms of cancer, then you can start identifying people that would overlap with you and would probably need your perspective as interests. Okay. And so you might not even necessarily start all the way from your own side. You might start from even maybe from their understanding from the side of things, and will give you a deeper understanding of your side of things. Okay. I wrote a cancer proposal. I did not do a cancer research. Probably in the next 1 week, I'm going to be resuming for a 6 weeks internship in an actual cancer lab. This is 10 years after my PhD. I get to now pursue something that I had left because of constraints of funding, of access to resources. So, and I mean, this is going to be the opening. But guess how I'm getting into this program that I'm going for? Because I'm a skillful molecular geneticist. And so they think, oh, she's going to be able to contribute her skill sets as a molecular geneticist to solving problems in this cancer research lab. My host is a clinical surgeon. I was still joking with him that maybe by the time I'm leaving, he will teach me how to do surgery. And we laughed. So, but now, 6 years, 10 years down the line, after PhD, counting 4 years of PhD, 14 years, I get to start doing what I'm interested in doing, that I was interested. Not like I don't find my other research interesting. So you have to, this is why I say you have to do a lot of inner thinking and understand your constraints. And you're not going to get stuck. You have to be flexible about things. I want to do this. You have to be careful, understand the resources, the limitations of the resources where you are, and then how you pipe to get to where you are going. That's what I would say. I hope I've been able to help you with answering this question. There are people doing cancer research in Nigeria, but you have to be able to find alignments with them. Okay, that's my answer to that question. Is there any other one, Shubini?
Yes, we have one person is raising their hand, but before we get to that person, we also have another question in chat. So Boluwatife Borisade is asking, is interest in a particular field of research a good enough reason to be in that field? Or do you need to have a clearly defined?
Can you guys hear me? Particularly the person that asks the question.
I can
If
hear
you
you.
can, just type.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Because it looks like the network disappeared from Shubumi. So I can read the question. So there is a three-part answer to this question. First, is interest in a research field good enough to be in that field? Yes and no. Do you need to have a clearly defined problem that you want to solve? Yes. So you see, there are three answers. The first one has two. So you may not have interest in a particular field, but it has a clearly defined problem that you find interesting that would expose you to maybe skill sets, soft skills, some expertise that are at the core of that field generally that you're interested in. If that is the case, and trust me, and there's funding, let me add that one. There's access to resource. I think that one will be good to take that thing and fall in love more with it. By the time you study it more, you will like it. Okay. Now, what if you now even have a reason? The answer is yes. And you have a clearly defined problem. Yes. What about funding? What about access to resources like facilities, chemicals, collaboration? So it goes just to either ways. You also need to think further about what are the resources I need to solve this problem? Even if you have an idea of, okay, a clearly defined problem, you have to get to the resources. When I wrote the proposal for my proposed PhD in cancer research, but I couldn't go forward because there was no funding at that time. I wanted to sample, wanted to do an genetic epidemiological study of breast and ovarian cancer in Nigeria. It would require collaborating with doctors, ethical approval. Now that most institutions have ethical boards now that things are done quickly. Literally that time you could use 1 year to get ethical approval because I'll be handling human samples, ask questions, questionnaire. And I wanted to do, trust me, I wanted to do the entire of Nigeria when I had that idea in my mind. Hey, until somebody sat me down and told me that, yeah, think about it. In Lagos, how many hospitals do you have? In Southwest, how many hospitals do you have? And they would say, I said, okay, even Lagos only gone. I don't have access to resources to be able to fund it. So at the end of the day, I eventually did my PhD in the area of plant molecular biology, where I studied the biochemical pathway of thymine in maize towards maize fortification with vitamin B fortified by maize, vitamin B fortified maize lines, which is also another area of interest I find, another area of research I find interesting, which is food nutrition. I really, really like that area. So that's what I did. And that's why I got all of my skill sets. Let me bust your brain. When I did my trainings, I did all of my molecular biology training in a lab where they work with microbes. I transferred the skill sets that I got from there to solve the problem I had in my PhD research in plant molecular biology. And so the kind of microbes they used to do in the lab where I worked was medical microbes. After my PhD, I got a job in an institute where we do industrial microbiology, which is primarily working with friendly microbes. And I transferred that skill set again to be able to solve problems is related to, more friendly microbes in industrial microbiology. And I'm still transferring that skill set on, which is going to take me into doing molecular genetics of some cancers in the next couple of weeks. So I hope I've provided some answers to that question. I don't see any other question.
Um, there's just one person that has their hands raised. So I think
Okay.
that's the last question that we'll be taking for today. That's Oladayo. That's I think. Yes.
Good evening, ma'am. Thanks for that wonderful position, ma'am.
You're welcome.
My aspect is as in the cancer research aspect as well. I worked with Dr. Adebeshi during my MSc program to under cancer. I did cancer research, but not the actual cancer I wanted to do. But due to the fundings and everything, so the emotion, the motive, the drive that brought me for that program, like it was just demoralized. Like I was like, I can't even do much. So I don't know how can someone still. I still have that drive in me to work. Like I have my own proposal that I have in my brain to do, but this is the fact that I don't have the finance. I don't have much. Fine. I later forcibly did the cancer research. Then I did it. I called other my other members. I was the head of the group to so that you can have fundings and all. But it's still not what I wanted to do there. So I still have that aspiration to do more, but I don't know. You said during your time you have the issue of funding, but I think those times it was 3 years back. So I feel like now whether there have been some solutions to get fundings and all in the cancer research like that you have known about. That was my question.
Hmm. Do you want me to tell you the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So good. I'll tell you the truth. So just take it all and run with it and do what my language, yeah, Yoruba. Also pé àbọ̀rọ̀ ń sọ fún ọmọlúàbí tó bá dénú ẹ̀ adòdìdì. That means that when you're told something, you ruminate about it and then you make it your own. You apply it to your own specific situation. Okay. This is 14 years. I have not done a single cancer research. Sure, you still manage to do something related to the cancer you wanted to do eventually, but I've not done anything related to that cancer research that I was interested in to start with. Okay. So that gives you a little bit of a perspective. That's why I agree with you that there's a little bit more access to resource. The time Professor Adebeshi, I will call him Professor, Dr. Adebeshi wanted to start cancer using cell line and all, it was frustrating. The setup in lab, I can't remember, that lab in old science, they put all those resources there. It's light still. Set up that tissue culture lab and everything, but funding, light, power messed a lot of things up. So even beyond funding, power is a very big issue and constraint to research generally in Nigeria. So realistically, if you want to do cancer research, don't be looking to do cancer research in Nigeria unless you want to wait for Nigeria to get there. As you see, did I wait for Nigeria to get there? If I was waiting for Nigeria to get there, I've been able to do what you did. I would not have still been able to do that thing that I wanted to do. So you can't wait you have to look outside of the scope of your environment. But the question is, are there little things that you can do within your environment that can take you towards that point right now? Because they say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. That is a step in the right direction. If you take the step in the other direction, you've just added 1,001 to the step. That journey, the step towards the right direction, little steps. You have to be deliberate now. If you absolutely want to say, okay, I have a friend who's going to, and a collaborator who's going to be traveling to the US in the next couple of months. He's been looking for a PhD scholarship for the past 6 or 7 years, and he wanted to do molecular medicine. But he has a job as a lecturer in a university. First started out in a research lab, and then from there transited into a university. He's been doing a lot of work in the area of microbiology and biotech, and now 6 years after, he's going to molecular medicine. Guess why? And of course, he was interested in cancer research. Guess why they accepted him in that cancer research? He's coming with mad of skill sets. A lot of skill sets and experience that he has amassed that made them give him his full funding to come for that program. So we have to think about it. Where are we going? How do we get there? There might be detours and right, left, and center, but you're going to get where you're going. However, you have to be strategic. So as you're thinking about now, what I expect is, for instance, on Twitter, go and follow everybody that you know in the world that is doing cancer research. First of all, that's one strategy I'm giving you. Go and open, don't have Twitter, go and open it. Every researcher in the world that you know is doing cancer research, go and start following them. LinkedIn, send connection requests to all of them. You can't tell. Maybe they will post something that would be something. If you're looking for something, you have to look for it to find it now. It might not even be that, oh, let's say maybe they don't give you funding. What if I can come to your country and do part of my research? Can you support me? Is there any grant I can apply for to support me or collaborate with my supervisor in Nigeria? I was the one that linked my PhD supervisor with all the collaborators in my research. I was one that got the researcher that went to their lab in Germany. The publication where I got the information about the biochemical pathway of thymine biosynthesis, I had the lab of the woman I visited in Poland, the woman that published almost all the articles that I referenced in my paper, in my work, in terms of methodology. I visited a lab for 3 months. Where did I find her? Inside publication, reading. I only saw one of her papers, and I couldn't. They were saying buy money, buy paper, buy paper. I did not. I said, okay, let me email her. I wrote email to her. Said, ma, I found the pathway. I can't access it. I'm a poor clinical child. Put this in. Shoki, give me your paper. I listed it. I want to use it as my methodology. I asked for 6 papers. The man sent me 12. By the time I finished printing everything and studying it, I appeared before my supervisor. It was like, have you done this PhD? I finished my PhD with mouth because I had access to information. And from then on, we talked. He said, okay, you can come to my lab. I don't have funding. So let's condense your work. I was literally working in a lab for about 16 to 18 hours at some point every day, just so that I can finish the research and come to Nigeria. A research work that if it was senior clients, I would have done in the space of a year to a year and a half. I compressed it into 6 months. It's expensive to live in Europe, paying house rent, 220 euro from Naira that we changed to euro. So I was working like somebody that's you know when when they say somebody is working like Wobia, like when you've not eaten before, you are hungry, I see all the food. That's the way I work. So I finished, I came back. So sure you have an idea of what I'm suggesting that you try. That's what
Yes,
I'm
ma'am. Yes, I have. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. You're welcome.
Well, that was a very insightful answer. I'm going to steal that trick of going to Twitter and following everybody that is beneficial to my field. I said that was the last question, but I did you typed the last question. I think so. This is going to be the last question that we answer for today. So he says, for early career researchers, are there any frameworks to secure funds in such scenarios, or are there societies or organizations focused on funding junior researchers? If yes, can you help with such organization and the best practices to approach them?
Okay, I'm even reading the question from here. So this is a multiple faceted question that we'll try to answer as quickly as possible. So by early career researcher, is this person master's or PhD? That's the first question I'm going to ask to be able to answer clearly.
I did join you. You can reply.
I just finished my PSC more, so yet to start
BSc.
an MSc.
So are you the early career researcher in question, or you're just
More like a
asking for
junior
early
research? Yeah.
Okay, so let me first of all tell you, early career researchers are not people that are even not that don't have masters. The word early career researchers is used to describe people that just got their PhD. That's the appropriate use of that word, early career research.
Okay.
I remember the word that we used to describe BSc and master's degree people. That thing has left my head. So it's your research career starts. You see, it's like the way you say, okay, I'm here, I've joined you people in research, it's PhD. That's where you start from. And that's why I tend to tell people that don't be stuck up and be like, it's it must be this research. If it is not this research, I cannot do any other research. You are deceiving yourself. Even Oyibo people here that have all the access to resources, they're not thinking like that. So up until you get to your peer, you absolutely shouldn't do research that you're not interested in. So that's why you can't have, you have to be a scientist at heart, okay? What drives science is observation. Observation, you want to solve a problem. You can have one that is your baby to your heart. It's okay. But instead, a solution that I'm going to provide to a problem, and you find some thrill in it, and there's resource available. In fact, okay, let us be very factual. If there's resources for a research, I call you and I say, hey, I have funding for a research, is molecular biology oriented, is this, and that, and I have funding, I'll be paying you some stipend. Will you fall in love with it or not? Shubomi, answer.
Fall in love with it too. I'll fall in love
So
with it by
let's be very
force.
serious with ourselves. You will fall in love. You will find love and passion for it. Okay, again, because you've thought about, okay, might not be the baby love of my heart question, but it is something that you're going to get skill sets that will take you to where you're going, right? So in the case of BSc going to do masters, what I'm going to first advise you is that go and look for masters and go and do. If you want to stay in research, the best thing is to go and start immediately. If you are not doing it in Nigeria, if you want to do it abroad, you can start looking now, actively. I don't know if you've done your NYSC. During my NYSC, I was searching. We were always sitting down in OU cafe that is for their staff. I had brochures delivered. At that time, maybe I was looking for UK. If I knew that it was US, I probably would have gone to the US by that time. I had an admission. I had partial funding. My daddy now chose to retire at that time. That's how my UK dream of doing applied genetics, University of Birmingham, dreamt me into my plan B, cell biology and genetics, Unilag, background. And then again, after, as I was applying molecular medicine, cancer, apply. I did not see my plan B, background, cell biology and genetics, Unilag. Time waits for no man. Now you have access to resources now. Just like I said, I would advise you start looking for researchers, funding opportunities. And it's not everybody that will go to America. It's not everybody that will go to UK. It's not everybody that will go to us. Broadly, the world is on your palm like this now. In Nigeria, there are people that work in Nigeria and earn in foreign currency. All the economy that we are talking about, they are just changing their money. Whatever the value of the naira is, they will get value for it and solve their problem. Researcher, the world is on your palm. Look for a way to do your masters. Find a good place to do your masters that is going to align with ultimately your goal to get to where you're going. Okay. And I want you to pay attention. I'm saying it again, your skill set. What skill set is right now, the whole of life science is transferable skill sets. I use my research to answer questions in parasitology. I collaborate with parasitologists. I collaborate with enzymologists. I collaborate with everybody because they're either using DNA, RNA, protein to do their work. That's my those are my babies. So once I do that aspect of research for them, that is me collaborating with them. So you can join societies. So for you to get funding at the level of masters, BSc is very hard. Even early career research scientists, that is those with a PhD, you have to collaborate. That's where they say, maybe you have your own research supervisor, you'll be a co-PI with them under it. And so you start building and building up like that. Even some people, 10 years, 14 years post-PhD, they've not found independent lab to start laboratories as their own principal investigators. So it's going to be hard. I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't know any organization that will give you a BSc holder grants. You can, however, say you are a junior researcher in an organization. You can start looking. Look at your own boss. That maybe a professor. You can find a grant for them. In finding a grant for them, you find that's your own, you find the funding to the research that they are doing to do the research. Do you understand? You can do that one. And also joining societies mostly for your level now, I guess you'll be able to get things to do training basically. And maybe for instance, say in your laboratory where you are, they say they should go and do conference presentation. Be eager to raise your hand that you will do the presentation. Don't run away. And if you're staff, okay, you can go and present that. You're going for conference, sir. So can I go with you? Can I present a poster on this paper aspect of the work that we've done? So I think I can put a poster together. The more you put yourself out there, the likelihood that you're going to meet somebody, because conferences are an avenue for you to network, collaborate, and talk to people. Okay. So you might be able to get funding to do trainings, conference, but like with large research grants, I don't know if that one will be possible. And please, before you start thinking of self-funding, remember, it's not by choice that I chose to carry my parents' money and make my father sell his land to Germany. It is because I got what I would have paid to do my work in Germany and Poland would have been in the range of close to about $15,000 or $20,000. And then versus, okay, ticket money, this one money, that one money, put it together. It wasn't so much. And so my parents felt, okay, if this is what you have to do, you've started this thing for a while. They decided to help me out to get the job done. So that's what I will do. Just don't think about, there's one person that I met at some point was telling me that, in fact, I've never met that type of person before. We had someone that had a collaboration with a lab where she could go and do the aspect of her work that was taking her time in Nigeria. This lady, she went to go and collect loan to set up lab in her house. I was just laughing. So after you set up lab in your house, you now go and buy Meccano generator, Abby, because that's the only generator that would power all those heavy equipment. But after that, and she's still paying her school fees, she's buying reagents. She said she don't need to travel about to do clinical fair. And she's doing the PhD in private university. She's still on the PhD program. If she had listened to what we told her, I was and the supervisor that we're talking to her, she would have forgotten that she has even ended a PhD like a year or two ago. Now, she's trying to put together all the work she's been able to do and identify the small that is remaining. Guess what? So that she can find a place that she will go and do abroad. Me, I say I'm not interested again. That opportunity I had at that time, the person has found somebody else to do it. You can't fund your research. Even the one we talk about in Nigeria that we do is that you pay for reagents and small. When you people contribute money to your supervisor to do things, they buy reagents. These things are expensive. Ridiculously. A DNA extraction kit, 50 preps kit, when it was costing 80,000, we were doing now it's 300 and something thousand. How?
Wow.
And because it's a dollar to naira now, you can't fund research. You think about this thing very well, but trust me, research is sweet. I don't have landed properties. I don't have everything I want. but I have enjoyed myself. If I had to do this over and over again, I would choose this path. But I'll probably choose to originally, if I had the choice in heaven, when that fertilization was taking place, I would have chosen my donor sperm and egg as my parents, but another nationality. I really love these guys. I'd have chosen them as maybe Americans or British. The two of them got gone. But another day, I like them. I like the two of them a lot. I'd have chosen them elsewhere. So life that I would have still chosen this path. I've met people. I can't. It is something that I'm grateful to God that I chose to pursue, okay? And I'm very comfortable. Okay. Another thing is you're not thinking about this, that you want to have plenty money in your pocket. It's not the place that you have plenty money in your pocket. It's not money that is driving you. It's not industry of money. No. It's industry where you solve problem, and in solving problem, money will chase you. That's where you are in. You solve problem, money will chase you. Resources will chase you once you solve problems. Okay. Yeah. There's a little bit of sacrifice getting there, but you will enjoy it. You will enjoy it.
What a session. This has been so interesting. I don't know about any other person, but I think I speak for everybody when I say really been touched. It's one thing to talk about science in the abstract, but lived experience, it's something else. It's something from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the Hygiene Life Science Foundation, I would want to extend my deepest gratitude to you for sharing your time, most especially all the advice. I don't know if software for when they don't to you in the future, but then would like.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, yes, ma. Is there anywhere you'd like them to reach you? Like, have
Oh,
any more
my
questions?
email address. And truth be told, that's LinkedIn something. Some people will write me and they write essays. I open it, I close it. I'm not joking. And that's what everybody does, by the way. When I open it and it is too long on that my phone. Where's my phone? Let me show you my phone. Hold on. So that you people know before you start sending ridiculous messages to people, and why you say you've written, they did not answer you. It's because they are not reading you. See, this is my phone. If I open it, let me open LinkedIn for you now. Quickly. I'm on LinkedIn. Where is messages? I open message like this, and what you have written is past this field of view. Well, in fact, if it's past this first paragraph and I don't see the cocoa in what you have written to me, I won't read it. I'll just do like this. And that's what happens with the emails you write. Shocky is screen size. Shocky, what do you want? Even when I write stuff to people, I provide, then some of you write background or something, research, and you now give somebody 3 pages, 5 pages. Who has time to read that? You are trying to stimulate somebody to be interested in you. Please, it should not be more than half page. What are you writing? Or 1 page at the most. Even when at this stage, I'm looking for a collaborator for a research project. Start. Background. Materials aim. Materials and method. Major references. Short. Let's say, okay, this is what she wants to do. If you like, put all the does not carry you anywhere. Shocking. If you write for me, I'll just be like, I will be lost. By the time I get to the 3rd or 4th line and I don't see what this person is asking me about today, so I can answer you immediately. But it's the one that I will now start thinking about. Hey, imagine how many LinkedIn messages I get, emails I get. It's serious. So, Shoki, you want to send email to me? I'm giving you my email. I'm on LinkedIn. Send me a message on LinkedIn. I read my emails every day.
Okay,
and I
thank you
will
very
respond to you. I will.
much.
I usually read my emails every day. If you can't send me long email, you not hear anything from me. Me, I've told you the truth. People
We'll
will
try.
not tell you the truth. But me, I tell people the truth. That's if you've been looking for abroad people, that's why they are not responding to you. Another thing, let me tell you, is this. Most of foreign universities, they have spam blockers against Gmail addresses. So if you see the way I title my email, it has to be sweet. I will put the title. If the spam doesn't store, block it. Let it be stimulating for the person to want to click it. I will put the title of their paper that I read, and now say request for collaboration. I shall do it in a way that the person will what's this? This has to do with me. And they will click it. In the first 2-3 sentences, they know that what I want. Go. And then we go straight to the point. Quickly. And if you're a student emailing somebody outside the country, I always copy my supervisor in the emails that I had to send at that time. I always copied my supervisor in the email. It gives authenticity to her. That's if spam doesn't block it. So now, we used to write emails that time to plenty people. No response. Because I later got to know that spam blockers block emails, Gmail, when the level of security was not that tight. But I think it has reduced now. But still, you see that Twitter thing that I told you, and LinkedIn. Go and start following everybody. If you share somebody says, I'm looking for students that are in this, and that. Are they not expecting a response? As I've seen some people, I am interested. Really? How many people wrote I am interested under that post? 50 people. They will message you and say, okay, you are interested. Reply me. You did not put something sweet under your own I am interested. I don't say, okay. This person, I can respond to them. DM me something. I'm interested. Yes, I am. I can do. How now? I don't understand.
Wow. Yeah, that. I think that everybody should be taking that into consideration going forward. I personally would. I've learned that I've been making quite a few mistakes, and I'm going to try on it from now
They
on.
said that you are shooting your shots.
Yeah.
That's shots. When you are playing penalty, you have a goalkeeper in front of you that is designed to catch the ball, right? He's trained, skillful to catch the ball. So you are the player playing the penalty. What are you supposed to do? You can deceive the keeper, deceptive move in where the placement of the ball, or just play a bad shot. The keeper will run away for the ball. The ball will be too fast. Ball, let us shake. Go. Or you see those ones that the keeper will go like this, the player will play it like this. In this time, point is where your shot to the goal.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I would think I am really, really grateful that you were able to share your experience and share your wisdom with us. To everyone here, I hope this conversation has sparked something. Excellence, it looks like staying curious, asking questions, and applying for that next opportunity, and believing that you belong in that field just as much as anyone else. Thank you once again to Dr. Fadipe, our team at iGene, and to all of you who joined and who have stayed to the end. I really appreciate you all. Thank you very much for your time. Do remember to follow iGene Life Science Foundation on all social platforms. We are on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter as iGene. On Instagram, we're iGene LSF, iGene_LSF. On Twitter, you can find us at the same handle. On LinkedIn, it's iGene Foundation. Also, you can just write a mail to us anytime, or as Dr. Fadipe said, you can just send her a very short mail or message on LinkedIn if need be. I think that will bring us to the end of this session. Thank you very much, everyone, once again, and have a wonderful evening. I look forward to seeing you
guys take care of yourself.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. Bye.
I wish you all the best. You will succeed.
Bye, ma.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.